All right, grab your instrument and jump in the back of your parents' car because we are back with the My Mum Was Our Roadie podcast, episode 3. I'm Alex Camp, and I'm very glad to introduce our second guest of the series. I've written this down this time. I messed up my last introduction, so I'm going to make sure I do it right. So we've got guitarist, vocalist, multi-instrumentalist, I would say for sure, composer. Please don't stop me if this is blowing too much smoke up your ass. Formerly of Shield Your Eyes, Strobe 45, currently of Price Attack and Reciprocate. That would be about right, wouldn't it?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And solo artiste, underground veteran, and I would say blues man at heart. Really, modern blues renaissance man is that's my version of it. Yeah, I think so. Please welcome Steff Ketteringham. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, great. And you, Alex?
Yes, I'm well. I'm good, thanks. It's Tuesday. I didn't do anything yesterday for the bank holiday. I tried a jigsaw puzzle, and that's about it. That's the kind of things I do now.
Yeah.
On those days, what do you do with a bank holiday weekend in general?
I was trying to mix some music yesterday. What was the jigsaw puzzle?
It is a horse running through the shallow water of the beach.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really hard. I'm
Yeah,
struggling
right.
with it. Honestly, it is absolutely impossible. Hope I didn't just get a notification there. We'll shut that down. So let's get into it. So you and I have known each other. Well, we met probably 20 years ago, I would say.
Yeah.
Something like that. And we haven't seen each other for a long time. But we kept some contact years ago. And now we're converging again here. And I must say, you were a member of probably still to this day my favorite unknown underground band, which, as you know, is Strobe 45.
Wow.
I know. It's. I thought maybe I'd have grown out of it because I've changed, my tastes have evolved, everything like that. But no, I found your stuff on YouTube recently. Somebody put it on YouTube, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm still into it."
Oh, wow. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, someone has put the EPs on YouTube, haven't they?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
it just sort of happened. I don't know who that person is.
so you don't know who it was. It's nothing to do
No,
with
I
you.
don't know. Yeah, I think maybe they must be some sort of archivist or such like, because I think they've done quite a lot of other, bands and sort of demo CDs and things like that.
I need to check that out actually,
is
and I am going to do that while we
quite
talk, and
fascinating
I'm going
that
to quickly
someone's
pull it up and
sort of
see. And
spending
I'm
time
going
to
to
do
contact
that.
this person because this could be a really good contact for me if they're archiving all these bands from the early to mid 2000s.
Yeah,
Then we need
I
to
think
talk.
that's what they're up to. That was the impression I got.
Well, I mean, let's just take a second to big up those people who put things on YouTube, especially when they know that it's not going to get monetized or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's old school, the way it used to be before everyone started going, "All right, I need to do YouTube to make loads of money." So good for them. Oh my goodness, it is kicking off. I can't wait to look at this stuff. So I'm going to take us back a little bit. First of all, do you remember when you performed with my band Headroom? Do you have any recollection of those gigs or gig that we
Yeah, I
did?
think there was maybe sort of 3 or 4 gigs I think that we did together.
Yeah, I think we did a
The
few.
first one was somewhere in West London, on like a Saturday afternoon, I think. Where is that right? Does that sound right to you?
Yes, let me take this opportunity to talk about this one because first, so I remember where it was. I don't know how this is stuck in my memory, but it was at a venue called the Cherry Jam.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first time I saw you guys, and actually we weren't playing. I don't remember why I was there at this particular one, but I was there with my friends who were in Lament.
Ah, right. Yeah. Yeah.
And they were the other big kind of, in our village, they were in our town, they were the other band who were teenagers, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one of their first kind of pay to play, go to London, come to London and do a show, this thing. I rubbed my hands together like Mr. Burns for the benefit of the audio listeners, and a money-grubbing promoter is what I was trying to communicate. It was empty as far as I remember. There was no one there. And I got there and they were like, you got to see this band who sound checked. You'll fucking love them. And I was like, nah, whatever. Probably smoked some weed beforehand as well, which would be my habit at the time. That must have enhanced it. And then I sat down and watched you guys. And I remember it being a pretty empty room, which almost intensified it because you were a couple of years older than us, I suppose. And you were just this blasted, like the loudest thing I'd heard. You just like squeaking and wailing on the guitar, on this broken down guitar that looked like just a Frankenstein's monster. Your drummer was going crazy, all these really complicated beats. The bass player had this, like, it was like Les Claypool or something. Mm-hmm. And then Toby was there just like with this kind of almost Cockney version of Zach De La Rocha, it seemed like to me at the time.
Wow.
And I was blown away. I was like, it was just spot on for what I was into at the time. So that was the first time. I mean, what do you remember much about that gig or how that kind of gig in London that you were doing?
Yeah, that it was one of those ones where we just really wanted to play gigs under any circumstance. So we would, any means by which we could get a gig. So I think that one we'd found it maybe in the back of the NME or something like that. One of those sort of adverts for like.
The NME is a magazine.
Right.
To all of any listeners or viewers who would listen to this at the age of 21. It's a magazine. We're made of paper.
Yeah, and so we would just wanted to sort of play gigs under any circumstance, and I remember, that's all I really remember. It was just we had our set, and we just loved sort of blasting away. We didn't really have any other requirement.
And that you did, and it sounded that way because. We talked last episode. I had a guest with Jack Bevan from Foals. We talked about bands being tight, and that was such an important thing when you're starting out, being tight. And it almost seemed like it could have been a backhanded compliment to certain bands who were more successful, because they obviously had other things in question, like being successful or writing good songs. But all I cared about was how tight are we, and you guys were just. How many times a week did you manage to gig?
Well, I think once we sort of got a few more gigs and stuff, we were playing quite a lot, quite often, like a couple of times a week or something. But we knew nothing about how to get gigs or even what gigs were available, or we didn't know that there was some sort of DIY underground thing out there. We were just sort of, we didn't know how any of it was done, so we would just like enter Battle of the Band competitions just because there would be a gig there for us to play.
I bet you all must have been a wild appearance at a Battle of the Bands with like a load of really kind of ambitious young guys playing, I don't know, Deftones covers or something. And then
wow, I mean, there was probably just a lot of other bands in the same position of, it was the only way they could think of getting gigs, down there, sort of local pub or something. Yeah,
did so many battles.
Yeah, I've got really really fond memories of just how we were very enthusiastic just to sort of try and play as much as possible.
How old were you then?
I think in Strobe 45, I was the oldest member, and I think I was like 21.
Okay.
I think Nick was the youngest, and I think he was 19.
Nick being the drummer?
Nick was the bass player.
Bassist.
Maybe I was 22. Yeah, something like that. We were all... and I think Nick and Pedro, the drummer, had studied at one of those music places in Guildford.
ACM.
Yeah.
That's the
And
techie. That's like the techie one, isn't it? That's where you go to learn scales and
yeah,
advanced stuff.
yeah, they had at that point they were playing like their instruments so much, their chops were just through the roof. Through They were studying their instruments, they were just playing all the time, and yeah, we used to rehearse a lot as well. We thought you've got to be rehearsing like 3 times a week or 4 times a week, and we were really yeah, we probably were very tight. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was really evident. Even listening to the CD now and listening to the EP that's up on YouTube, well, which I will link obviously everywhere I can for people listening to this. But it's evident because I mean, I'm guessing a lot of that was done live. There's certainly a live recording at the end of one of them, which is insane, and we'll get to later. So, but I mean, yeah, you guys were sorry, but in a way, you're saying you were naive. In a way, you really had exactly the right idea of what to do, which a lot of bands who maybe were more clued up and more ambitious or a bit more straight down the line don't do. And I know that my bands that I was in afterwards, in Mean Popoline and Justice Force 5, we didn't rehearse enough, really. Like, we could have rehearsed a lot more. Because if you live it, you sound amazing. And did you have a place that you rehearsed, like someone's house or a studio?
Yeah, quite a lot of the time we were rehearsing in Nick's bedroom with his like family downstairs, putting up with this huge amount of noise.
Racket.
Yeah, a couple of times a week. And then I
Wow.
think, that was incredibly generous of him.
Good
And then,
people.
yeah, yeah. And then I think we did start rehearsing in other places. There was a few sort of it must have been Toby arranged for us to rehearse in a classroom in a school. I don't know how that worked out. Like we just had keys to a school or something. Like we let ourselves. I don't remember the details of that, but
That
yeah, we
would
got
not
sort of,
fly nowadays, I
yeah,
just feel
mental,
like.
yeah,
Let's give
like
these random men access to this school whenever they
yeah.
like.
Maybe it was more organised than I remember, but I just remember for a rehearsal we'd have to move all the school tables out of the way in this classroom and set up our amps, and we would just blast away at full volume in this sort of unsoundproof room. I don't know how that was, what facilitated that,
Just the
but
chalkboards vibrating and falling off the
yeah,
wall and amazing.
yeah.
I've never heard that before. Sneaking into a random school
Well,
to
I
do
mean,
rehearsals.
I don't know. It seemed legit at the time. I didn't really question it. I don't know who had sort of arranged that. Maybe it was Toby. I don't know. Right.
You might have to check in with Toby and find
Yeah,
out some of the
that would be
answers
my
to
one
this.
question.
Yeah. Who sorted the school out?
Yeah,
That's cool. So you guys were just like went full on into it. I'm guessing that was one of the things that I liked so much about the band was that I feel like, and this might be simplifying a bit, you and Toby had a bit more of the punk mentality, and in terms of your sound, like you were doing something on the guitar which was not playing the guitar. It was everything except playing chords, and you were making noises. There were squeaks, there were open chords, and Toby was kind of shouting and giving a lot of like guttural energy and charisma to it. Whereas Nick and Pedro were like just this solid rhythm section and really complex. That seemed to work really well together, I think.
wow.
Was that
Yeah,
something that you did on purpose, or was it just an accident of what went on?
I think in our sort of very youthful way, we had like this utopian idea that it would be an entirely, each of us just did 25% of the sort of musical input, that there would be no, um, that it would be indistinguishable who's sort of leading it or something like that. I think that was what we were
Mm.
trying to come up with. And yeah, I mean, Pedro and Nick were absolutely brilliant musicians. Um, and as I say, their chops were through the roof at that point. I think probably me, I just didn't have the chops at all compared with them. So probably that's why I was going into a sort of just going in a slightly weirder sort of noises direction.
But as a guy who's played in funk bands a lot, it's hard to think of something to do that isn't, the short chords on the high strings and chop in and like tick, 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 that kind of thing. The classic funk kind of music, whether it's punk funk or Gang of Four or like Red Hot Chili Peppers or whatever it is. It's really hard to deviate from that. You almost have to go somewhere completely different sonically. Well, so let's take that as an opportunity to talk about you. So let's see how we got, because I saw you there at that gig. You're obviously at this point, and you weren't together for that long after that gig, were you? Really? It was.
I think we
maybe
were
a year or two.
Yeah, I think in total the band was going for about a year and a half. I think.
Oh, fucking hell, that's nothing. Amazing. It seems like a lot of time when you're there, doesn't it?
Yeah, because that felt like a long time then.
When I realised I'd been doing comedy longer than I'd done any band I'd been in,
Wow.
That was a bit of a shock.
Yeah, well,
and it's quite significant now, because I think I never lasted more than six and a half years in a band, and now comedy I'm doing it for 8. So
awesome.
So we'll take it back. We'll find out how you got to that point. So you. I read a couple of interviews with you. So you started on your dad's nylon acoustic guitar. Is that right?
Wow. Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
That's most of the information I picked up, if I'm honest,
Right.
but I thought it was quite impressive. So you started out on that. Did you take lessons, or did you just copy, or did you just do what you wanted to do?
I didn't have any lessons. I was just kind of playing along to records on. Just trying to sort of pick up what I could from jamming along to.
What kind of thing do you remember what kind of thing you were jamming along to?
Like I'd got really fascinated with the sort of late 60s London blues boom sort of world, like from, like Hendrix and then got really into Taste and early Rory Gallagher. And I would just jam along with that stuff on that. And
is that because that's what your parents had lying around, or was it
really sorry.
No, go ahead. No, that's it.
My dad had a really nice record collection of, like, not very big, but some really awesome records that I just sort of stole off of him when I was about 12, and just just sort of obsessed over those for a bit, and that's what got the ball rolling for me.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because I guess that is now out. That doesn't exist anymore. It's our generation. Yeah, my dad had maybe the width of my thumb to finger, maybe double in actual vinyl. It was not a big collection.
Yeah.
But he had Bob Dylan, he had Beatles for Sale and the White Album, and he had the Moody Blues, Simon and Garfunkel, and there was like and Cream. He had a lot of Cream stuff, and Zeppelin. And so that has completely set my taste, as well as a few other things that he later got on CD and put on tapes to play in the car. It's my taste. It's spread out from there, and James Brown, he had a James Brown album. So that's how I ended up with funk, was from James Brown Live at the Apollo 3, which I used to listen to all the time, which is a brilliant one. It's just when he's getting really funky. After he's done the soul thing, he's getting really funky.
Yeah, wow.
So we're both shaped by that.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I think that's the age when you, in hindsight, that's the age where whatever it is that lands in your lap at age 12, you're sort of programmed to obsess over it. And it just happened to be that set of records for me that, like it sort of could have been something else. But, that's what it was.
It
still love it.
Could have been anything. So you're obviously playing a bit of guitar and learning off records, which is amazing. Not the formal training kind of thing. Fast forward a little bit, how did you end up playing with other people? Because there's that first time that you try to play music with someone else. Do you remember when that first kind of time was that you played with someone else?
Yeah, me and a couple of friends from school when we were about 16 maybe used to jam in one of their bedrooms. He had a drum kit and we used to jam. And I remember that feeling so incredible to plug into an amplifier that was there and turn it up and play along with a drummer. It just felt like it was a wild thrill to just, you know, do that.
Yeah. Playing with a
Um,
drummer is like, oh my God, this
yeah,
is what it's meant to be.
yeah, it just felt like a crazy luxury to be able to do that for the first time. Which was great.
Who are the
Um,
guys? Shout them out,
a
just in
friend called
case.
Gav from school, who I been in touch with in recent years. Great lad.
Good.
And a guy called Chris was the drummer. Who I haven't bumped into him lately, but I'd love to.
Good. Good. It's good to remember the lads from back in the day,
Yeah.
who we all rocked out with. So, had a couple of goes. Do you remember any band names or any bands that were that? Because we all had those bands that were aborted before they made anything, or they may have been a half an hour or a week of something. Do you remember any band names?
Not really. I don't think any of my bands got as it was just jamming with people. I don't think anything got as far as having a gig or anything or having a name. Uh,
No one wanted to put a name to it. Sometimes that's the most fun part.
yeah. I think it was. I think it was getting round to Strobe 45 was my first time I'd actually had an actual band where we were saying let's look for gigs and let's write a set of songs like proper, our own
So Strobe
songs.
45 was the first proper band. That was the first one
I
that.
think so. Yeah. I mean, I'd done some playing with other people, but it was the first time that it sort of really clicked, where it felt like, oh, we can express something with our music, which I suppose is the aim with music, isn't it? To express something. But,
To express something, and like you said, to connect with people, whether you're playing with them or whether you're playing for them. I mean,
yeah.
I miss the connection with other people because I'm mostly doing stuff on my own now, on stage doing stand up. But playing with other people is completely unique, and I always miss it, and I do want to get back to doing it. But I still get to express things. It's just in a different way. So let's paint a picture of you at this point. So when Strobe started, how old were you, and what were you doing with your life? Like, what did you have a job? Were you at school? What was the situation?
Yeah. I think I was like early 20s. I think we were all working sort of jobs um, to like sort of pay our rent and stuff. I think I was working in some warehouses and those sort of jobs. I think
Warehouse is good.
got
Headphones on,
to
just fucking stack.
that. Yeah, and I think the other guys were also. I think Nick was studying, and I think Pedro and Toby were also working sort of similar sort of jobs in like warehouses and like kitchens and stuff. Yeah, we were very keen to sort of spend do that so that we could spend the rest of the time trying to do the bands at the time.
Yeah, so it sounds like you were all kind of looking for something. There was no one was like married or had a dog or anything like that they needed to do as a secondary thing. It was
Yeah,
all
at that point I think all four of us were very sort of focused on some idea of finding out what it can be to really go for it with a band, but we didn't know what potential there was. We didn't know what types of experience or what types of sort of success you could aspire to. We didn't know. As I say, we didn't know that there was like a big sort of underground DIY thing out there, which we'd have loved to have known because we were sort of operating in those ways, as were all the other bands like you guys and the other bands that we would bump into.
Did you know? Because it seems like to me you're explaining how I want to say naive, and I guess we were all naive at the time, being young. But you didn't have any idea what the lay of the land was. Is that because that you were just kind of young, or did you think you knew what was going on, or did you come into it going, I have no idea what this is, like I have no clue, or did you think, yeah, I got this? What was the level of confidence and with you guys? Because for me, I was like, I know what I want to do. I want to be a rock star. I've got this. Let's do it. That was my thing.
Wow. I think we sort of knew that we were a bit clueless. I think we sort of knew that we didn't know how do you sort of. We just all we could think of doing was play gigs. We just thought that's the only way. We didn't know how to reach people. We didn't know. That was all we. That's all we could think of doing was let's just try and play a lot of gigs. We didn't even sort of want to get paid for the gigs or anything. We were just, we just wanted people to let us set up on their stage.
Don't worry, no money. We're going to do this for free. Don't complicate it.
Yeah.
Well,
I think we sort of knew that we were quite clueless, but that there must be sort of something. There must be some interested people out there, but we had no idea how you sort of. We just had a lot of enthusiasm for trying, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that is the best thing to have. I always feel like I was too arrogant when I did it because I always felt like I knew what was going on, and really I had no idea. I was just as clueless as you, but I didn't know how clueless I was, which is, I look back and I'm like, I see now that I had no idea. But I did have the enthusiasm too, and I think that's always the difference between people who started bands and people who wanted to but didn't do it, or even in terms of getting into music solo or anything, is that enthusiasm of like, I have to do it. And it feels like you had that.
Yeah, it did feel, I think we were quite sort of frustrated. We really just wanted to play. I think there was lots of things about music that we really didn't like, but we didn't yet know how it was that we could operate in a way that we would like. We were just sort of trying things out.
So, you guys are working little jobs. How did you meet? Who was the first you met? How did it go in order? And how did you meet those guys?
It was me and Toby met first of all, and then he went to. I think we'd said we wanted to do a band, but we just needed to find some other people. And then I think he went to that ACM place for not long. I think a couple of months, and I think he met Pedro and Nick in that time, and then left. And then a little while later, we started jamming with them. I think it's something like that. I think Pedro and I had jammed for a bit, just the two of us. And then the four of us got together. And at the time, it just felt like a dream lineup because I'd seen Nick play. I didn't know him, but I'd seen him and I knew he was a really savage player. Yeah, and
he was really good, man. He was really good at bass.
Yeah.
He was so good.
I'm sure he still is. I'm sure he's, I know he still makes music and he still plays a lot.
Do you remember the name of his current project?
I'm sorry, I don't know what he does. What name he uses at the moment.
I'll do that research later.
Cool.
And I'll pop it in the links. What was it called? Red something?
Red Nice Guy was. Yeah, he did that straight after Strobe, or in the years after. Toby did Shoes and Socks Off and Meet Me in St. Louis, that really were quite big bands for a while. It was amazing seeing an actual sort of zeitgeist band happen, sort of, to some friends.
So I do remember Meet Me in St. Louis, and I bumped into Toby a couple of times in Brighton because he lived, and I think he still does live there, if I'm not mistaken, or he's back
Brighton,
there.
Yeah.
I do remember that band. They were really good. We've jumped ahead, so we're going to go back a little bit. You met those guys, and what was the first Strobe 45 gig?
I think it probably must have been at the Tumbledown Dick in Farnborough, which is like our local venue. a lot of things from there. Or it might have been, maybe it was at the Star in Guildford, which was another sort of place that, us and our friends' bands, we could, hire it for like £50 or something.
Oh, okay. That was more like do your own show. It's cheap to hire. You just get everyone in and kind of run it. It wasn't more like a venue that books you.
Yeah, I don't remember if they provided a sound person, or I don't remember how it works, but we played quite a lot of gigs. Those places are so like important, really, because there's countless bands and countless musicians. They're sort of early gigs, but you really need to do to sort of learn how to play really live, and it's in those venues where it happens.
100%. The venues are a big part of this podcast, and so let's dig into that a little bit. I am just looking for a pen, but I don't have one, so I'm going to use my notes app. I'll just throw it through the ether. So when you said the Tumble Down Dick, that brought back a lot of memories. I don't think we ever got to play it, but from following you guys, I knew that was the place that you played. And I think we had a gig arranged there and it didn't happen. That's how I remember it, because I don't recall ever going to Farnborough, but I know the name well. So tell me about that venue, as in what it was like, describe it, and were there any bands that you remember from that scene?
Well, obviously it was a complete shithole, and but it was just where, like, growing up there, that's where you do all your early drinking and stuff, and all your sort of naughty, sort of teenage stuff. And
was it a pub separately? Was it a place where other non-musicians would go, or was it more just a venue where you just go and see bands and get pissed?
It was a pub, yeah, with a back room where the events happened, and there was pool tables as well, and some great nights happened there over the years. And
amazing.
It's now a McDonald's.
Oh wow, okay. I mean, I think that's better than it being a co-op. I am a McDonald's fan, I must admit. Being someone who drives a lot late at night, I must support my Mackies.
That was one of the venues. There was a really good venue that I think is still operating called the West End Centre and Aldershot, which was like one town over, and that was a council run sort of art space venue, and it was harder to get gigs there, but it was another sort of great place for local bands to do their early gigs and play with sort of touring acts that would come through.
Yeah, I remember that one. I'm just trying to think if it was also where there was a bit of a scene popped off with some kind of early new rave and like synth bands later on, but I think I'm getting it confused with something else that was just in actual West London,
right?
Where kind of late of the pier and stuff got started, but I can't remember the name of it. But I remember I do remember that as well, being the place that would crop up when I was checking out you guys and what you were doing. Any bands that you remember from that time who you used to play with at those venues?
Yeah, there was a really good band that I'm still friends with the members called Lebertol, and they were from Jersey, and they used to come over. I think a couple of them lived in London, so they'd arrange like week-long tours, as in the same sort of world of, playing the same sort of places. And we hooked up with them quite a lot, and they were one of the first times that I just got totally blown away by another band. Just thought they were phenomenal.
And what were they like?
I'm terrible at describing music, but they were like a sort of
three-piece, four-piece guitars.
4-piece, 2 guitar. Had a little bit of the Groundhogs in them.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really good friends with all the members still, so they were a really big band in my mind, in my life. They're called Lebertol.
Lebatol.
Yeah.
Lebertol, got it. I'm going to put that on my list of things to check out and find. This is all part of this podcast, is getting that kind of homework done.
Yeah, I think they released a few EPs, and what we knew of them was an album called 4x94. That's what they were. It was a CD that they put out at that time.
I mean, one of the things about doing bands at that time that we discussed on the first episode with Jack is that it was this world in between physical media and digital. When we were still making CDs, I know you guys made CDs, which we'll talk about in a bit. We had CDs that we'd made, and everybody had these CDs, but you knew that it wasn't worth shit. It was cheap, and it was deep down. You knew no one was going to care about it in a couple of years, and it was going to get, because we already had MP3s and stuff. It took ages to download them, but it was before social media and before streaming, so we didn't realize how it was going to go. It was just this weird middle ground, I think. Would you agree that there was a bit of that?
Yeah, and I think that's all part of the not knowing what we could aspire to. Like, I didn't have it in my head, I want to make an album or something. That just seemed like nothing to do with us or something. Like, we'd made the CD. The CDs were just a way that we could try and get gigs. But I don't remember I doubt we really had an end game that was very clear, but I don't remember what our sort of motive was, other than we just were hoping that there'd be some sort of escalation in the gigs. You know, at some point maybe we'd be able to play bigger gigs or something. I don't know, but yeah, there being no sort of format of how to release stuff that we were aware of. There was just, all we could do was burn up tons of CDs ourselves. That's all we really could sort of think of doing. And the other thing was that we were we didn't have like any spare money at all. The CDs that we were burning, it was like if we could scrape together enough money to buy a packet of 50 blank CDs, great. That means we can burn some more. You know, it was, the whole thing was very. I mean, I'm not in any way complaining or anything, but
no, I just have fond memories of that CD, and I'll explain best I can. I remember getting one, and I must have got it at maybe the second time I saw you or something. I don't know if I got it the first time. The one I originally got, I think, was only one track,
right?
Which was maybe the song 45, or it was 45 and another one, Wonderland, maybe.
Yeah.
I believe it was just two tracks, and it was a few things impressed me about it. First of all, I mean, it was in a clear plastic jacket. It had one piece printed at paper, which had your number and one of the other guys' numbers on it. It was printed out it was on some glossy-ish paper, but it was done on a printer, obviously. The CDs were like PlayStation games. They had a black, shiny side, which I thought was really cool. And I was like, how the fuck did they get them? Because I could never find a CD with a black, shiny side. And the other side was painted with 45. And I was like, is this going to work in my CD player? Because I was worried it wouldn't fit. But so what do you remember about making those up? Did you guys sit in a room and do them?
Yeah. The spray, the label, the 45 label, I think it maybe that came from some. I worked in a warehouse that sold like numbers, you know, like sticky numbers that you put on something like a number plate, and so I think we were using those as a template. This was all stuff that I was stealing from work. These numbers were the template, and then we used spray cans that I'd also stolen from work because it was like car paint, and we used to just get completely high on the fumes just in our little flat that Toby and Pedro had, spray painting up these CD stickers.
Amazing.
And you could do like 50 before you needed to go to sleep because you were so. You know,
yeah, you got to open the windows and just like, guys, we're going to die if we keep doing this. It's not going to be fun.
Ourselves with spray paint. And the CDs, I think we bought those from PC World. And the printing, I think that would have just been something that someone did at work on the sly, I think.
Absolutely. That's the only way to do it. At the office when no one's looking.
Yeah.
And you had that one, and similarly, there was another. I think there were three in total. There was two that I had that were each two tracks, and then there was one that was all the tracks that I imagine all the tracks you recorded. They're all the tracks I've ever heard, and that's what's on the
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 last one,
YouTube.
yeah,
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 Must Kill. Was
yeah.
that right? Must Kill EP.
That's right. Yeah,
Now, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to speak about the recording of those songs. Well, I mean, I don't know about the process. All I know is that when I put it in the CD player and put it on, I was like, that's the fucking loudest mastering I've ever heard in my life. I'm assuming you didn't know much about mastering
yeah.
either at the
We
time.
didn't know anything. We didn't know anything about how you do anything regarding like any of this stuff.
I've
Like,
never heard anything like it since. It sounded, even the punkest, most metal, most whatever out there electronic bands, I've never heard anything that peaked so much. And it sounds brilliant, in my opinion.
well,
It sounds great.
yeah, yeah.
Tell me
I'm
about the
not sure.
recording process of that. I'd love to hear how you guys got that done.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if it's a really like a good thing to let through your speakers, to be honest, because we didn't take any care over it at all. We didn't know anything about frequencies or anything like that. But
Yeah, definitely don't put them on dad's expensive hi-fi
yeah,
when you go home for Christmas or whatever. Don't do that.
yeah, I think so. I think it was that we'd recorded. There was a place that we used to go to record. This nice guy who had a home studio in his garden. Like it was quite nice, and we used to record there. But I think we didn't understand that there was a stage of recording. We didn't really understand that there was mixing and then there's mastering. We didn't know. We just thought you play, and then the engineer at the end of the day gives you your song, and that's it. You know, we didn't realize that maybe there should be mixing, or we definitely didn't know about mastering, and so we were always really disappointed with the result because it doesn't sound very good, you know. And I think Pedro stuck it in his computer and had some like cracked version of so, something or else. I don't know what, and he just uh, yeah, he just sort of boosted it hugely, and it just sounded better to us. We didn't realize, you know, we're in the world. We didn't realize we're doing like a completely uninformed mastering job on our music, and we were like, "Wow, it sounds so much better like this with everything turned up about 10 times the amount."
So
And
loud.
and that was it. We were just like, "Well, it sounds better, so let's press that." You know, yeah, complete complete naivety, but
Honestly, I
it is.
really love it. I really do love it. I like you say, I would be always be careful on how, you know, what speaker I put it through, but I just think it sounds brilliant, and it sounds like you guys. It really does sound like what I remember you sounding like, because you were fucking loud as a band.
Yeah,
That was fair.
yeah, yeah. I don't
It's
really
fair
know
to
why
say.
we played so loud. I think Pedro was quite a loud drummer, and you know had a sort of a loud snare hit, I suppose. And I think we sort of turned up our amps to that, I suppose.
Accordingly,
Yeah,
yeah.
I suppose.
I do feel like you're as loud as your drummer a lot of the time, and that is the fact of it. I've always played with loud drummers pretty much. Sometimes you get someone in who's not as loud, and you're like, "Oh, okay, that we need to pull this back a little bit. It adds to
Yeah,
the dynamics a bit." But
yeah,
and so, what you put the CDs. I mean, I'm guessing you were giving them away, selling them for a couple of quid or whatever. Is that would that be right, or just
I think
sending them
that's
to
it.
people?
Yeah, I think we'd sell some of them and give the others away. Yeah.
What was the how do you think that your band was perceived where you were? So in Farnborough, Guildford, Aldershot area, you obviously played with a bunch of other bands if you were gigging so much. Like, what did the other bands think of you guys? What did the people who went to the gigs think of you guys? What was the general vibe about Strobe 45?
Well, I think we were probably a little bit older than a few of the bands in our area. There was, and it is how I met Henry, who then um, went on and did Shield Your Eyes and Reciprocate with, the drummer, because he, as a like sort of young teenager, like at 13 years old, used to come to our gigs at the West End Centre. And, you know, that was some of his early going to gigs experiences. Was so like Pedro's like still one of his favourite drummers just from those days, you know, and they're like friends now, you know.
Yeah, I've seen that happen a lot. The guys that I've played with a lot of the time, you know, they're not so much our drummer in Headroom, but the drummer from Lament, Tom, who I'm still good mates with and was in a band with for years and still see him a lot. And he's still playing music. He's still a pro drummer.
Nice.
A lot of people still, like my little brother is a drummer, and he used to come to our gigs. He's 6 years younger than me, and he still kind of idolizes Tom to some degree.
Yeah, brilliant.
Just from that, because he was young, but he was good. He had that something.
Yeah.
But so this guy, he must have been a big fan of you guys then, this Henry, and now you're playing with him.
Yeah, him and his friends. Yeah, there was a crew of them that would come to our gigs. That's really nice. I mean, I suppose ultimately that's what we were trying to. That's what we wanted to happen, was to build up some interest in, you know, in that sort of natural word of mouth way of, you know, some people wanted to come and see us play.
They call it organic growth now.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I suppose that's what we were hoping to achieve. You know, we didn't know. I'll stop saying we didn't know this, we didn't know that. But that was it. We met Henry and then and a lot of other people, and then that meant that the next bands that we were doing, it was sort of involving those people, and they or you know, that's how we sort of developed.
Yeah, it's sort of like webbed out from there, and so it was. I guess it was your ticket in a way, right? Having this band that was just, I have a feeling that you didn't quite know what you were doing. I'm getting that vibe from you. Something's telling me, and that's informed. That's informed. Like you had this opportunity to do this thing, which just threw you in at the deep end, really, didn't it? Like kind of the deep end. I mean, there wasn't a lot of stakes, right? Because you didn't get big exposure, but you got that chance to just go, "Fuck, I like playing music, and this is how we do it."
Yeah. And sort of learned how at the time how to sort of arrange gigs, and then how to sort of get to gigs, you know, we learned a huge amount that is still really useful.
I think you're a very humble man, and I think that because everybody who saw you guys through me and through the guys from Lament, we were like completely blown away by you guys. And I know, I mean, because I spoke to you in the years afterwards, and I told you how much I liked the band, and I know that you guys were kind of like, you weren't quite sure about the sound of the CDs, and you didn't get very far, but there was something about that band, dude. There really was. And it was like everybody because so you came to play in Tame.
Yeah.
Do you remember coming to play in Tame? Tell me a little bit if you remember about that.
Yeah, it's a great memory. Like, firstly, I've just got nothing but good memories really about, you know, the whole time of doing that band. And then this is a very fond memory of coming to, I think it would have been at like maybe a football club or something.
Cricket club.
And it's just this wild night where I think the power went down a couple of times. And it's just been this great, you really welcomed us and gave us a really cool night. And I think that's where those were the situations that we'd been sort of dreaming of, you know, where you know, people take you into their town and say, you know, come and play. Like we just wanted to do that, like go to other towns and play to the people that are into this sort of music, you know. And that was sort of one of the first experiences in my life where we've been invited to do exactly that. You guys had us come and play in the cricket club, and I remember it just being totally great vibes, great sort of wild night, lots of great time.
It was an interesting one that because we were so excited to have you. That was the thing. We were like, okay, they're coming. This is brilliant. And you're right. Like, it is great when someone brings you into their circle, into their town. They welcome you, and there's well, however they express it, and letting you sleep on the sofa, or drinks, or food, or just companionship, friendship, and all that. So it's really great, and I love still getting to do that in comedy, and like being able to go and do it in Europe, and people from different countries, all this stuff. It's great. We were just so delighted to have you there that we were, and it's the weird thing was it wasn't where we usually did gigs. Usually we were doing gigs in the big village hall in Chinna, which is the next town or village, and there were the Sports and Arts Centre in Tame, which was a really big room. And we usually our parents were helping usually. But by this time we were a bit older, so we were like, we're going to do this ourselves. And the cricket club was where we had like parties, like DJs, UK garage, R&B, Smirnoff Ice. That was what was happening usually in the cricket club. So having a gig there, and especially a band like you guys, and it was a low ceiling, really small room, very sweaty. And I do remember the power went down a couple of times.
Yeah,
it was great, man.
Yeah, great times. Yeah,
it was really good.
That was really cool. Yeah.
So go ahead.
I think did you also arrange for us to play in a theatre somewhere in the area?
You played at the Tame Players Theatre.
Was it? Yeah.
I think you did. Yeah, I think you did play at the Tame Players. The Tame Players. Do you have any memory of doing that one? Because I remember that was really cool, that venue.
Yeah, I remember thinking what a fabulous place to come and play. And I can't remember what was off with us, but there was something off with us that night. I think I can't remember, but I remember feeling like we should have given a better account of ourselves. I don't remember what the issue was, but there was something that was off with us. I don't probably something really, really petty that I was taking far too seriously. But I remember,
we'll do that.
What a sort of dream venue, like a small theatre. Like that's that's still kind of like the dream place to play. Those sort of places.
Yeah, that would have been the guys from Poor Girl Noise.
Right.
So Chris and Ed and Paul and TQ. And that was the first gig they put on, I'm pretty sure. So for me, that gig was always like, it was a night off, and it was my other friends who were into music that was a little bit more avant-garde, more post-rocky, more like different than what I was doing with Headroom. So I would get very stoned in the park or nearby. There was a library around the corner where we would smoke weed. And then I would go and sit down in that theatre and just absorb the bands, especially if they were like a band called Tetsuo and my friend's band Thursdays of Vega. They played at that one. And what was the name? Chad Valley, who was a guy who was friends with the guys from Foals and Youth Movies and all these Oxford bands, who had like an Amstrad computer, like an old Amstrad computer. And he's just a guy just sat at it and made these kind of Aphex Twinny but not kind of beats. All these different bands and I just sat there in the audience and enjoyed it. It was great.
Wow. Yeah,
I don't remember you guys being off.
Well, yeah, God knows what. I don't remember. I think I used to get pissed off about tiny things, like within the bands,
So many.
Yeah.
I always had that issue. Which I guess brings us neatly to how did the end of that band come about?
How did it work out? I don't really remember. I think Nick perhaps left. I can't remember why, but I think just quite a natural. I think we'd stopped being able to like write things, be pleased with what we were writing, something like that. Although I think the last few things we did write were quite good. They were the things like that I would still like now. I think the last 3 tunes, I think.
And do they survive, or are they just lost to?
I think they are the things that are on that Must Kill, the first 3 songs off of that EP. I think they were good bits of music, and I think it was I don't want to say what I think the others thought, because that's sort of, I shouldn't speak for them, but I think I don't really remember, but I think we weren't sort of going in the same direction anymore musically. Yeah, that's it. And then I think I don't think we wanted to carry on with a different bass player, although we did briefly. I think we did. Yeah. Sorry,
I don't see how you could.
Yeah, I've got a very hazy memory of what I know that we did audition people, and I do really, really regret that we were quite shy in the way that we didn't know how to. We thought we could audition people, and I don't know how we let people know that we were looking. Maybe we'd put an advert somewhere, but people would come and jam with us for like a full 3 hours or something, and then we were too kind of gutless to tell them, yeah, that's not really what we want to do. So we just wouldn't. These people would just never hear from us again, and they'd never.
You ghosted them.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we were just too sort of scared, or we thought it was just too rude or something. I don't know. Yeah, we didn't mean to, but we just we didn't treat people very well. The people that we came and auditioned, I think there was probably about 5 or 6 people.
We did the same though. We auditioned for people back in the day with me and Popeline, which was after Headroom, and yeah, we didn't always let people know. And we had some weird auditions. We went to this guy's house and we auditioned him and his mate, and I can't remember how but it was so awkward because afterwards we were having a cup of tea. They wanted to keep us there for a cup of tea. It was like in his parents' house. And we were trying to make our excuses to leave, and I had to like pretend to call Christian, and he said, "Oh yeah, I think my cat's like out or something, and I've got to go get." We just made up these lies.
Oh wow, yeah.
So you weren't the only one.
Yeah, but I do regret that, because I think it was a bit rude to people, because that would have been these people auditioning. That's other people trying to make their way in music and getting frustrated by all the sort of, the difficult steps of just trying to get something happening, and then we were just another one of those sort of, things they were going to have to sort of try and work out. Why didn't they write back, or whatever it was.
Another one on the list of rejections.
Yeah, so I do regret that. Looking back, that was a bit arrogant, a bit rude. Anyway, sorry, that's that.
No, it's very empathetic of you to feel that way still. I mean, I honestly, I couldn't give a shit about the people who we didn't call back, which shows a lot about me.
It's not really about the people. It's just that the way we conducted ourselves there was a bit naff. It's not really about...
it's not about them. It's more like, I behaved in that way. And...
Yeah. It's not really the right way to conduct yourself over something. So I think we were quite full of ourselves in some way. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, by then, I mean, the thing is, you had that lucky thing of finding people who you gelled with musically almost immediately. You didn't have to audition. You met these guys. I mean, I don't know if you did, and you didn't mention it, but you met these guys, and that was musically so much vibe there between you guys.
Yeah, and that was going to be very, very difficult to sort of carry the band on with a different fourth, with a different element, with a different person. Especially as Nick's bass parts would have just been impossible for anyone else to have learned. I think that was so sort of outrageous.
I just wanted to check the track lists of your EP, and the first bit of it's Wonderland, isn't it? It's the first track. Yeah. Come Quietly and 45 were the ones I was thinking of earlier. Those were the ones that on the original CD I had. But yeah, Wonderland is like plucking, slapping, chords, tapping. Like it's like 8 different things going on. I heard the beginning of it just come through my speakers. I'm like, oh my God, no way you're replacing that guy. Unless you go literally get Les Claypool or Flea or someone to do it. Like it's no way you're getting anyone.
Yeah, I really like that bass line of Nick's. There's sort of a minor keyed repeating thing, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. It just goes over and over again like that. And then And then
Yeah,
the
I really
chorus is
like
quite
that.
ding 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 ding
Yeah,
ding.
yeah. I mean, we were we never really, like Toby and I had got a bit sort of obsessed, I suppose, about the second Rage Against the Machine album. So that was sort of
I love that album.
yeah, that was really informing nearly all of our musical ideas. Yeah,
That's my favorite one. I
yeah,
listened to
Evil
it the other
Empire.
day on vinyl.
Yeah, it's a classic, but it didn't really deserve all the sort of shoddy, people trying to rip it off that it received. But it's a great album.
Yes. Although more people ripped off the first one, I would
Yeah,
say. That got ripped off in a royal fashion. I feel like Evil Empire, a lot of people didn't understand it, and the band didn't, I don't think, really liked it at the time.
wow.
But I just think it's brilliant. It's more punk version, anyway, to me.
Yeah, I still love that album. Yeah, it's totally amazing. And I think, yeah, at the time we were listening to that a little bit too much for them.
You can hear it. You can hear it.
Yeah,
Not a rip-off, though. I wouldn't say that, but you can definitely hear it. That's why I liked the band so much, I think, probably, is that. Okay, so you guys split up, couldn't replace Nick, and you went your separate ways. We've already discussed Red Nice Guy. Was Pedro in? So you then formed Shield Your Eyes, is that right?
yeah, that's right. There was a couple of years where I think Pedro then went and he did a few bands, but then moved out of the area because he wasn't from the same area as us. He was from Cambridgeshire.
Okay.
So I think he then went and studied again. I think he studied film. So yeah, and then me and him did a bit more music together here and there, like writing things and stuff. And then it took me a little while. I moved to London, and it took me a little while, but then yeah, got jamming with Henry, and it was very easy to write music with Henry. So we very quickly got Shield Your Eyes happening, and then for me, that was where things started happening. How I had I was quite frustrated at that point. I really just wanted to get playing in a band and really going for it, and like arranging tours and things and releasing vinyl. And it was Shield Your Eyes.
Which you did do. I mean,
Yeah,
you
we
went on a bit of a tear, I would say, between from 2006 to 20 for 10 years or so, I would say. I mean,
yeah, it was. I think we were going about 10 years, and that was Henry and I really sort of going for it quite full on at times. And yeah, and I felt like that band was sort of got a lot of stuff out of my system, and I learned what is possible and what isn't possible. I was had some amazing times, and I was very satisfied with how that band went.
what were some of the highlights? We don't have loads of time to go into it, and we can always do another one in the future and look at steel drives, because it's a really interesting area that I would like to know more about, because I know you toured a lot. I know you did a lot of stuff in the DIY world. At least that's what it feels like from my perspective. What were some highlights from that era with that band?
With Shield Your Eyes, I think probably going abroad to do gigs abroad, touring we went around Europe a lot.
Favorite European country to gig? Mine's Austria.
Wow. I suppose we kept going back to like France and Spain and Germany, Czech Republic, and
Czech Republic's
some
good,
great
yeah.
times in Slovenia.
I really want to go to Slovenia again.
Wow. What were you doing? Were you doing stand up there?
We drove through it with me and Popeline
Wow.
on the way from, I can't remember where it was from and to, but we went past Lake Bled,
I don't know.
and we were, it's this beautiful, it's a lake, a beautiful area. If you go to Lake Bled, because it's stunning. We just were like, oh, we've heard about this place. I think we're driving between Austria and Czech Republic, maybe. Probably the other direction than that, but now I want my favorite basketball players from there. They've got a lot of basketball players from that area, so that's why I want to go back. But Lake Bled was beautiful.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I think that having the opportunity to visit lots of places that we otherwise wouldn't necessarily have, ever gone to in our lives. I think that was the probably the highlight of gigging and.
And they treat you better over there, I think, in Europe. Don't you feel like you feel in England sometimes you're doing gigs and you feel like you're an afterthought of an afterthought, but
Well,
there's like they welcome you and they give you more stuff, I feel like.
yeah, I feel I don't want to just sort of speak badly of British hospitality, but I think there's a lot of really good promoters in Britain as well. But yeah, like I remember the first time that we played when we first started going to the mainland, and I remember pulling up at a gig in Germany, and the promoter kind of like jumped down some stairs and said, "Thanks so much for coming," and we'd never heard that kind of welcome, like that attitude of, "Wow, you've come to play for us." Like, yeah, we were pretty used to venues being pretty ambivalent to, what we were up to in Britain, I suppose.
You're a much nicer and lovelier man than me because I'm right ready to slag off anyone at any time. But I think you're right. I don't want to slander the venues in Britain because there are great promoters in comedy, in music. There were some who unfortunately weren't as good, but I guess it's a combination of the specialness of visiting another country, but also we would get paid way more going out there, and there would be more beers and more food and stuff, things that the beer was always a thing. I mean, I don't drink anymore, but it felt like in England we would get warm Fosters in a can, and there, if you go to Austria, they get you the local beer. It's chilled, it's in a glass bottle, and you're like, that's proper.
Yeah, there was lots of times where we realised what the people wanted to. They wanted to kind of give us a kind of let us in on what their local culture is like, and sort of giving us, all sorts of generosities to do with, like eat this, drink that, or show us around. People wanted to show us around their area. And that's really lovely. That's really those sort of times those are the things that you remember.
I love that.
Yeah,
I way prefer to travel that way than to go as a tourist completely to somewhere. I love going and doing. If I do a comedy show, it doesn't have to be a paid show, but if I go somewhere and do a comedy show, you get that connection, and someone's like, We'll say goodbye to the cat at the end. We'll name check the cat at the end, and we finished our thoughts on this. But cats the same everywhere. I've noticed. Yeah, no difference.
Yeah,
in what countries they are.
Yeah.
What is your cat's name, by the way? Let's introduce the cat.
I can't claim that she's mine, but she's called Bagel.
Oh, Bagel! That's a great name for a cat.
She was a little legend. Yeah.
Beautiful gingers.
Yeah,
we're still in fashion.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing, man. I think as it was in the last interview I did, we filled an hour with stuff that I loved, and it feels like there's still more in the tank. So we'll have to see about getting you on another time to talk more about your other experiences and your other projects. Is there anything that you want to, if anyone's made it this far into the end of the podcast, is there anything you want to plug, or any music you want to point people in the direction of?
Well, I hadn't thought of that, but I did write a list of bands that I'm into now, like sort of DIY bands. It's just a few things. There's a really great band, Still House Plants. They're amazing. Yeah. Skip Action from Dresden, really brilliant guitar and drum duo, sort of. Yeah. Really gorgeous. Something that just got released called Disonancia Expansiva from Spain, really great. And there's a band
Disonancia Expansiva. That's just a lot of dissonance.
There's a fabulous Spanish band called Les Conches Velasquez. Just great bands. And
awesome.
Of my own stuff, of people. Last year I put out a solo tape called Snouts. and mine and Henry's new band since Shield Your Eyes is called Reciprocate, and we released an album called Soul to Burn at the end of last year.
That'll be on Bandcamp, is that right?
Yeah, that's on Bandcamp. And then a couple of years before that, we did one called Yeah Well. But yeah, that's as much as I should. That's a lot of.
I will link both of them up. I listened to Reciprocate today. I really liked it. It had obviously Shield Your Eyes vibes to it, but it was something different and an evolution from that. And I really like that, what you're doing with that one. So it's great to talk to you, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, Alex, thank you so much. I hope I sort of shed some light that was in any way not too boring.
Oh, absolutely, man. You weren't boring at all. And like I say, you got mentioned on the first episode anyway, Strobe 45 did. So it's good to have you in here to kind of put a face to the name and the guitar sounds. Oh, and let me also, just before we switch off this recording, I want to say that you introduced me to open tunings. Well, I knew what they were, but early on I asked you, what are you doing with your guitar? And you said you do dad-gad, but the G is down to an F sharp.
That's right. Yeah. All of Shield Your Eyes was done with that. Yeah.
I started using that, and I go back to it all the time. I love that tuning.
Yeah,
one of the few I use.
Yeah, right.
So,
I might revisit it. I haven't used that one for a while, but there's some great licks in it.
It's lovely, man. And then you can just pull a slide out and do some slide guitar on it, which is great. Thank you so much, Steff, and take care.
Yeah, you too, Alex. Thank you so much.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. And please like and subscribe to the podcast, and wait for episode 4. Cheers.
Awesome.